Zach, you just heard him talk about having the three guys, but is there a scenario where the Jets trade Breece Hall for a Hall of Future assets, and then they still have Allen and Davis to carry the load next year in the backfield?
I don't think you can rule anything out right now just because we don't know what GM is going to come in here and want to do. And you have to factor in Breece Hall is going to be in the last year of his contract, and he's going to want to get paid pretty soon. But I would keep him. I mean, to Connor's point, I think Breece at his best probably doesn't need to be getting the ball 20 to 25 times. I think we've seen that he hasn't had his best season this season where teams have prepared for him. And I think if you're balancing it out with a guy like him who's very highly explosive, can score anytime he touches the ball, good out of the backfield, with a really strong runner in Braelon Allen and Isaiah Davis, who's kind of like a little bit of both, I think that's a really fun little trio of running backs. And it's something you can really build on. I think you look at this offense going into next year, I think part of the appeal is they have this group of young running backs. They have a young wide receiver in Garrett Wilson. They have a pretty solid offensive line. Like, that's a pretty appealing offense if you can find the right quarterback to lead the way. But I personally don't think getting rid of Breece Hall is the right move right now, unless a team comes in and throws some crazy offer at you, and then running backs are ultimately pretty replaceable. But I tend to lean on keeping Breece Hall in the mix.
And that is the thing to remember too. With like, we know Garrett Wilson is frustrated. You heard that in the post-game locker room. Zach, you were in there, and you can talk to it more. I was covering the Giants game yesterday. That disaster. So you can talk specifically to the tone that Garrett Wilson has spoken about. He's spoken publicly before about how, and said privately, I mean, you talked about it the other day, that things don't turn around. He's going to want a fresh new start. But Breece could be absolutely looped in that exact same boat. We talked about this on Jets' final drive last week. But it is important to remember with these guys that whether they kick in the new GM's office and say, I want to trade, or they go to Woody Johnson and say, I want to trade, it does feel similar to, and it is not as toxic as this environment was when this happened, but when Jamal Adams said, I want to be paid, make me a Jet for life. If you're not going to make me a Jet for life, then trade me. Well, the Jets went to Jamal Adams and said, we have full control over you. Yes, you're eligible for an extension, but we have you for your fourth year of your contract. We have you, this isn't the case for Breece Hall, this would be for Garrett Wilson, Sauce Gardner, Jermaine. We have the fifth-year option on your contract as well. And then, oh, by the way, we can franchise you, and depending on your position, we can also franchise tag you twice. So there's team control that the Jets have where they don't have to trade these guys, even if they kick and scream and say, I want to be moved, I want to be moved, I want to be moved. So honestly, ultimately, it would probably take a ridiculous package for the Jets to move either of these guys, and I don't really necessarily see it happening, although that doesn't necessarily rule out these players wanting to be dealt or them going to the next GM and saying, hey, I want a fresh start. It's just a matter of the Jets don't have to do it if they don't want to.